Hi there, welcome back to the shop. I'm Kale. So if you're new to woodworking, then odds are you're probably new to the table saw, which also means that you're probably new to all the hazards and the ways that a table saw can hurt you. So let's take a few minutes and go over some of those. So before we get into the basic hazards of a table saw, I want to go over some of the protective gear that you really should have with you anytime you work around a table saw. So first and foremost, you should always wear safety glasses. Mine are prescription, but these are polycarbonate, so they serve kind of dual purpose. You should wear hearing protection when you're around your table saw, and ideally you really want to have some dust collection and some air filtration. So, but more to the point of safety around your table saw, if you have one of these, or if your saw came with one of these, you really should do yourself a favor and just get rid of it. What I want to do is I want to show you this MicroJig. This is not a sponsored video. I don't have any relationship with these folks at all. But this is a very high quality piece of safety equipment to have around your table saw. And for, I don't know, $100 you can find them on sale. This is an essential piece of gear that should be around your router table and your table saw. So now I'm not going to go through a comprehensive how to assemble this thing. It's a bit intimidating when you open the box because it's in a lot of pieces. But that said, the manual that comes with it does a really good job of explaining how to put it together. And the reason I want to share something with you now is because this is my second MicroJig. The first one that I had, I was in a big rush to get a project done. I slapped it all together. I used it. It promptly fell apart, and I ended up losing pieces of it, and then it wasn't very usable. And so I have another one. So the key thing here is these little, don't really have a good way to show you just how small they are. These little O-rings that once a particular screw goes through one of these assemblies, and the instruction manual will take you through this, but once you have one of these screws through here, these O-rings go over the screw and down onto it a little bit. And essentially when you take this off because you don't need to use it, you don't lose the hardware. These things are very small. They'll fall inside your table saw, they'll fall on the floor in a pile of sawdust, and they'll otherwise get lost. So follow the instruction manual in putting this together. Use the O-rings where they tell you to. Learn a lesson from me. Had I put the O-rings on mine when I built it the first time, I wouldn't have had to buy another one. So the MicroJig, I'm going to put it together off camera, and then we're going to go over to the table saw, and I'm going to show you why it is such a useful tool. So first and foremost, if your table saw comes with an overhead guard like this, please use it, always. Unless you need to cut something so thin that this guard is in your way, it should always live on your saw. With this, you don't need something like a saw stop with a brake that can save your fingers. This will do all the work that you need to save your fingers as long as you don't stick your hand under it, which in most cases you can't even really do. So, can't overemphasize the value of these overhead guards because they also include anti-kickback devices too, which is a table saw hazard we're going to touch on in just a few minutes. All right, so here's what it looks like put together. Now, I have the blade guard on here, so I'm not going to actually be passing the blade over these slots. These slots exist in the event that you're doing a fairly narrow cut, like a 1/4 inch cut or a 1/2 inch cut from your rip fence, and you need these to pass between the fence and the blade. So because that's not the case, I'm going to take this outer piece off. And this is not intended to be a comprehensive how-to guide on how to use this MicroJig. This is the GR100. If you're interested in a full, hey look, check it out, I put the little rubber keepers on there. Now I don't have to worry about losing hardware. How cool is that? If you'd like a full video on how to use this thing, because it's really helpful around the router table, around the table saw, pretty much, I couldn't imagine working without one. So hopefully you'll take my advice and go get one from wherever you do your shopping. So like I mentioned, I've got the blade guard on. So what I want to start with fundamentally is that, for one, this is reversible and it's adjustable. If you need to make an adjustment to get a better situation on the piece passing between the fence and the blade and the piece passing outside the blade out here, you can move this around to accommodate a huge variety of different cuts. For now, I'm just going to keep it centered because that's not really the point of this video. But what I want to show you is that when it comes to passing a piece of wood through your table saw, there's some things you need to keep in mind, like cut planning, for example, and body positioning. When you're cutting a piece of wood, let me grab it. When you're cutting a piece of wood, you want to be mindful of the grain direction and look for any knots or irregularities, anything that the blade might act strangely around. You might run into something where there's a knot and your blade's going to slow down and heat up and make smoke because knots are a lot harder to get through. So when you're passing a piece of wood through the saw, I think we're going to have to change camera angles here. So let's say you have a piece of wood that you want to pass through your table saw. There's 3 directions of force that make for the safest cut on a table saw. Those directions are down, into the fence, and through the saw. Now, these do a great job of providing the down force, plus you can provide force against the fence, and the rubber feet really help hold on to the wood to make sure that you've got a nice smooth way to pass the material all the way through the saw. That's why I recommend these for any woodworker regardless of experience, because that one that I threw away earlier that just has the fingers on it like this, I'm going to grab it. Hold on. This is what we call a POS. If you don't know what that stands for, well, Google it. These things, most people think they want to be right up against the fence, partly because they don't want to run into their saw blade with this, and that's a good point. But so they want to go right up against the blade here, but when you push, if you notice, what happens as you're pushing is that the wood wants to come away from the fence. And if you don't have a blade guard on, bear with me, we're going to make some real-time changes. I love this Harvey table saw, and I'm going to do a full video on why I love this saw so much. So stay tuned for that. Let's see if we can get that out of the way a little bit. And let's put this back down. So, when you have it right against the fence and you push, and that wood wants to drift out, this is where kickback comes from. So as your blade is spinning this way toward you, this walks away from the fence, and as it gets to these teeth back here that are coming toward you, it allows the blade to catch it, and now it's going to throw it this direction with a good amount of force. So much so that it'll hurt you. One of my kids learned that lesson the hard way. So that's called kickback, and that's something that you really don't want around a table saw. Now, I don't know if you're right-handed or left-handed. You can do your cut planning and your body positioning to compensate for whichever hand you use on the table saw. Some people even have the fence system on the other side. There's a lot of ways that you can set up a table saw to do what you need to do. So, in my case, I'm right-handed. I like to use the push block in my right hand with the fence on the right hand of the blade. And so for cut planning purposes, if I'm cutting something like this that's pretty narrow, I'll push straight through holding down and into the fence and toward the cut with my right hand. But notice where my body is. My body is not in line with this piece of wood. If for any reason this piece of wood were to get shot straight out the back, it's not going to hit me. And if you stand in the right place, it won't hit you either. So this thing, primarily because it's too far away from the wood for you to actually have any downward control, you certainly can't push this into the fence with it. And about the only thing you can do is push it forward and end up in a kickback situation. So like I said, these are really, I don't know why they come with so many new table saws, given that they're just not that safe of a tool to use. All right, so there's some basics about why this is so helpful. If you go to the MicroJig website, they have a ton of videos that show you how to put it together, how to understand why there's a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch side, how to move these things around to get a bunch of different cuts. One of the things I really like about this is that it not only holds on to the piece of material that's going between the fence and the blade, but it holds on to the free piece that's going to come away from the blade. So now before I can actually use my saw without the overhead guard on it, I'll have to put a riving knife on it. You don't ever want to use a table saw without a riving knife unless it's absolutely necessary. This riving knife is what does the most to help you prevent kickback. So with the riving knife, the blade can't actually grab a hold of that wood to throw it back at you. So if you're going to use a saw without an overhead guard, make sure you have the riving knife installed. When it comes to how high your saw blade should be, opinions vary on this. I would recommend about 1/4 of an inch proud of where the top of your material is. You want to come through the material cleanly, but you don't want the blade up so high that it's throwing a bunch of sawdust in your face. So we're going to make a quick test cut. I'm not going to turn on dust collection because what I want to do is show you So I'm going to go turn on my dust collection, so it's going to get a little loud. But here's what I'm going to show you. I've moved the fence over to just proud of 1/4 of an inch. So we're going to cut 1/4 of an inch off of this board using this on the 1/4 of an inch side. And you'll see when it comes through that it's going to control both this small waste piece as well as the offcut piece. And when I'm done, I'm going to show you how easily you can control and move all of those pieces that are coming off the saw. So bear with me while I get some dust collection. Down into the fence through the material. So a few things to notice about this is that having this handle up here keeps your hand out of the way of the blade when it's exposed like this, which is a really good thing. It really bothers me when I see people using a table saw. I'm just going to mock this up a little bit. I see people using a table saw and doing this. And then they just go ahead and let the table saw blade chew into their plastic piece. And they go all the way through. And now I'm right over my spinning blade with loose pieces of wood that I have to reach over to get. It just becomes a less and less safe proposition. So best thing to do is to, if you're going to make thin cuts like this, definitely buy yourself a MicroJig because these are what they're made for. And also, if you're making a wider cut and you have the blade guard on, let me just lock this out real quick. If you wonder, I'm locking it out. So my table saw is hardwired into my shop, so I can't unplug it. But there is a steel pin that I can put through the start button that prevents this saw from being activated while I'm anywhere around the blade. If you have the ability to unplug your table saw, you should unplug it anytime you make any of these changes that you see me making. So now that I've got that done, put the blade back down. And I can pull out this safety pin. See if I can show it to you. So let's say you were going to cut something wider, say at 7 or 8 inches. So obviously this isn't going to fit over the blade. So, but what you can do is, I'll just use something that I've got handy. You can use this to hold down and against the fence and forward to help you get the material through. And you can use this hand over here, let's say you've got a wide piece, over here to push all the way through the saw and then let go and step straight back. So now all this blade guard assembly is protecting me. And as I come through, I'm being aware of where my hands are. And in fact, on my table saw fence, you might often see me doing this. I'll put my hand over here and use this as a guide as I come back, just to make sure that I don't accidentally come over here and hit something. So I'll go all the way through, put a finger over, and then use that to guide my hand back. And the more you do this, the more you practice this, the more it just becomes memory, muscle memory, the safer you'll be, because you won't inadvertently, a piece of wood falls off the table saw and you go to reach for it and something may come over here and get into the blade. So as soon as I come all the way through, I don't care where the waste piece goes. My hand's going over the fence and I'm coming back to safely get back to a starting position. Then I can turn my table saw off and grab my wood pieces. So let's talk about just a few other hazards related to table saws. Almost all the table saws that you can find, even everything we're talking about here applies to job site saws up through professional cabinet saws like this one. The fence system that they use is called a Biesemeyer fence. It just has a T-shape to it, and it has these pins and guides that allow you to adjust it and also allow it to move back and forth. So when you're adjusting your fence, it's important to have it parallel to the blade, but there's something called toe in or toe out. So if you actually have your fence toed in like this, when you're adjusting all the various ways that you can adjust your fence, then as you push a piece of wood through it, it's going to get pinched in this kind of shape. It's going to get pinched and you're going to get a lot of smoking. So ideally you want your fence parallel to the blade, or if not parallel, open just a little bit, because that's better. Once the material gets through the blade, you're not going to affect how straight the cut is if this is tilted away just a little bit. And I'm not talking a lot. I'm talking just 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, max. All right, so there you go. Some basic safety, and again, a high recommendation for the MicroJig. I don't have any links for it. I'm not an affiliate. You can go to microjig.com, or I'm sure you can find it on Amazon. They make a lot of different models of this. There's a lot of different accessories that you can get for it, but please, at a minimum, start with the GR100 block that gets your hand out of the blade and gives you more control over the wood that you're using around your table saw. Aside from that, please remember the safety around your table saw. If you have the ability to electrically deactivate your saw when you're changing blades or changing riving knives, please do. If you have an overhead guard system, please use it. If you have an anti-kickback mechanism that's frustrating to use, learn to work with it instead of against it. Resist the urge to take it off your saw. You're just making a more dangerous situation worse. If you have dust collection for your saw, please use it. Be careful around your tools. Don't get in a rush. Take your time. Make sure that you're alert and in the right headspace to be around equipment like this. If you've had a long day at work, stressful life with the family, or a stressful day with the family, or other things that are stressing you out, making you feel tired, that's not the day to be working around your table saw. Take the day off, get your wits about you, and come back at it another day. So, hope you found this helpful. If you did, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Helps the channel out a bunch. And that's it for me, friends. Till next time, peace, love, and sawdust. I'm out.